Welcome to the MMA Roadshow, episode number 369. This is Cold Coffee. John Morgan is not with me right now, but you're gonna hear from him shortly. We just figured we'd just do something a little bit different. I was already done with my work for the day, and he was still wrapping up over there at the PFL, so we just figured, what the heck? Let's get this thing started. So I'm coming to you from Las Vegas. Shortly you hear from John out there in Arlington, Texas. But man, this weekend there is so much going on. So much this whole week. So you got PFL where John's out there. That actually just wrapped up on TV. I just finished watching the main event of Clay Collier versus Jeremy Stevens. And man, that was a banger. I'm sure John will talk about it a little bit more in detail. But man, if you didn't get a chance to watch that fight, man, it was really, really good. Again, Bellator 278, 279 is going on out there in Hawaii. We have Matt Erickson and young Nolan King that are out there covering that for MMA Junkie. I don't think they have anybody out there for that small upstart site that John works at. What is it? MMA Basement or MMA Below Ground or something like that. I kid. So I'm stuck here in Las Vegas covering the UFC Fight Night 205, otherwise known as UFC Vegas 52, Limoges versus Andrade. Man, what a cool fight. You know, it's funny. We have so many events that are going on that a lot of times it's just kind of hard to keep track of all the fights that are coming and fights that kind of have ramifications for the divisions. I think last week we saw one of those instances where the card was one of those ones where you were building to the prospects. You were building for the people that were fighting for the number one contender fights. This is another one where, while neither one of these two women that are headlining this card are fighting next for a title shot, the fight itself clearly has ramifications for the division. Limoges, who's coming into this one on a 5-fight win streak. Andrade, the former champion of this division. You know, clearly for Limoges, if she could beat Andrade, this has to be the biggest win in her career, at least the biggest statement pointing her to say that she should be ready or pushing towards that title shot. She believes with a devastating finish or, at least something, an exclamation mark of a fight that she should be in consideration for that shot. That's quite a big jump. Right now, currently, she's number 10 in the UFC rankings, but, we've seen different things before where people have jumped the line, and clearly Andrade, while she hasn't been fighting in the strawweight division as of recently, is still the former champ. I mean, she beat the current champ, so you can never take that away from her. So if Limoges can go in there and get a big win, you never know. We've seen Dana, do crazier things. If the fight with Namajunas and Esparza is kind of a dud, which I don't really see that happening. But that fight, Carla, man, if she just kind of grinds it out and is able to impose her will, you never know. It might not be the most exciting fight, I mean, if Carla was able to win, I would think that they would give Rose that rematch sort of action, so they could run it back again. Even though, this is a rematch. I mean, Carla has that win in the past over Rose, man. That's saying something right there. But if Limoges can get a win over Andrade, that's huge for her. And on the flip side, if Andrade can come in here, knock out the number 10 in the division, end up just wipe away that 5-fight win streak, and especially do it in devastating fashion, she's clearly going to jump back up in at least the top 10, maybe top 5. I mean, right now in the UFC rankings, they only show her in flyweight. Maybe it's because that's, where she had fought recently against Shevchenko, and now she's coming back down here. Maybe they don't, want to waste the ink and put her in 2 different divisions, on their rankings, which is kind of silly. But clearly, Andrade is better than below top 15. It's kind of weird that you're not seeing her in the ranking, but after this fight, one way or the other, you're going to figure there's going to be some sort of ranking for her. But if she can come in there and do what she does and starch Limoges, I mean, I would not be surprised to see her jump up in there and actually start doing some things that can moving and shaking for this division and this card. So, but speaking about this card, decent fight. I'm sure John's going to go over it more, and I don't want to really sort of just gloss over. But if you can go to MMA Junkie, man, we had a great interview with Clay Guida, man. What can you say about Clay? 40 years old. He's got like 50,000 fights. I tallied them all up today, and it's literally like 50,000 fights. It's incredible. He's fighting a newcomer. Well, no, I say newcomer. He's fighting a younger guy in Claudio Puelles, and I'm sure I butchered his name, but clearly a case of the new guy that's like, hey, Clay was great, but he's on his way down. I'm the new generation. And you figure anytime somebody says that, that's when the older guy's like, okay, young whippersnapper, I'm about to show you how it's done. So that could be a really, really fun fight, and we saw Clay recently really just put on one hell of a performance. He went out there in his last bout against Leonardo Santos, man, went in there and got the rear naked choke. And looked fantastic. Santos is not a joke by any means. He's super, super dangerous. So for Clay to go out there and do what Clay does, man, God, that guy he's just timeless, man. Love seeing that dude go out there, man. And he's having a great time. He was talking today about how the restrictions sort of for the fighters here now have been lifted. They used to be sort of just stuck at their hotels, but they're not doing that anymore. They're letting them out so they can go and walk around. They're able to go and actually explore Vegas again. So he was talking about, like being able to run down through, the streets, run through the strip or something and be stopped by fans and stuff. And, how great that all feels. And, and ultimately that's part of the biggest fun that he gets out of these fight weeks is the interactions with the fans. And so that now that they're opening that up again, man, I'm happy for him. I'm happy for all the fighters. The fight weeks here in Vegas are going to start getting a lot more fun for these guys instead of just sitting in their hotel rooms and just biding the time and focusing uber focused on these fights, and probably losing their minds and thinking about how they're hungry. At least now they can get out of their rooms and think about other things. Another fight just, sort of after that I think is really, really neat and can be a lot of fun is Macy Barber and Montana De La Rosa. Of course, that's getting my fight of the night. This is one that, these guys have been meaning to fight for some time. The fight was booked, then due to injuries and whatnot and pullouts. The fight wasn't able to happen, so this is, in a sense, has been a really long fight camp for these guys going into this fight. Both of them are excited to get in there, but it's clearly another one where Macy just believes that all of her skill sets are just bigger and badder than what Montana's going to bring. But man, Montana, that last fight, I thought she probably looked as dominant, or at least probably one of the best performances that she's put on. Got her first ground and pound victory, so good for her. I think that's it bodes well that the fight could be a lot of fun. Montana's got a little bit longer length and height than Macy, but Macy just, man, 23 years old, man, she's a beast, and she's had great competition. One of the things she was talking about in the media day today was that she's, in a sense, grown up in the sport in the UFC. Had her first injuries, her first loss, all these just big things. I think she had like one fight maybe outside of the UFC or something along those lines. So she's had great experience, man. So she sees herself almost as like a vet in this thing because all of her fights are inside the UFC or something. So that should be really, really good ones. But yeah, I mean, there's some other ones, and I'm sure John's probably going to go over this card. If he doesn't, sorry, I guess. Sorry, not sorry. The interest in this card, if it was being dictated by the media that showed up for the media day today, it would just be me and one other watching this card. Because there was just me and one other at the media day today. Me and Alan Dawson. Dawson is the guy that recently at the last fight was the gentleman that was asking Munir Lazez about his call out for Daniel Kinahan. I'm sorry, I probably should look that up, but he's the guy that is just been sanctioned by the U.S. and is being wanted, part of this crime family over in Dublin or something along those lines. You know, I don't pay attention to that stuff, but he's the guy that called them out, and then a bunch of people are yelling at him like, why don't you just ask about the fight? Stop asking about this, you know, like they thought it was really bad that he actually did what journalists are supposed to do and ask fighters when they say stuff. So it's funny, this guy's been researching this guy's involvement, this Kinnaman, whatever, Cinnamon, this guy's involvement in sports, and then he just so happened to be at a fight where a fighter in his post-fight interview thanks the guy. And so he was just like, oh, no. He was like, oh, I got to go ask the questions. And so he ran back and was like, can I ask first question? And we were like, of course. Like, we didn't know what was really going on. So I'm always like, yes, please do your thing. So very cool. So yeah, if based on this card, I mean, there's some really fun fights on this one. But you know, is it going to take your interest away from the Cyborg Fight Night? Probably not, but oh well. Guys, I feel like I've been rambling and just not making much sense. I had a lot of fun starting this show out, a lot different than what we've done. Not quite as polished and as fun as when John does it, but, you know, just thought we'd have a little fun and switch it up for you guys. So now I'm going to do the fun part of the show where I get to hand it off to John, and then he makes it sound all good and like talks about like smart stuff and like real MMA stuff instead of me just over here saying like, fight of the night, yeah. So without further ado, guys, here's John.
Cold coffee. I appreciate it. Yeah, I did kind of spring that on him earlier today. I was like, you know, in the 369 episodes that we've run, there's never been a cold coffee open. And I say, you know what, man, you're going to get done working before I do. Why don't you go ahead and knock out your segment first? Tell us a little bit what happened there. But you do the open and all that. Like, you know, I mean, how many times have you heard it? About 369 times. I bet you could do it. And I don't know, was he trying to impersonate me there? Is that what was going on? That was his John Morgan impersonation to start off the top. But no, I appreciate him handling that. As he was handling UFC Media Day duties earlier today in Las Vegas, and I am just finishing up with PFL duties here in Arlington, Texas. Good to be in Arlington this week. But a lot of you probably know, but I'm originally born and raised in Dallas. DeSoto actually is where, but this area, the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. So grew up about 20, 25 minutes from here. So it's cool to be back, man. To be honest, I wish I could go to the other two shows that are going to be here. But one is next week. And I just need to get home, if I'm being honest with you. I haven't been home in a while. I've been on the road for like 2 straight weeks, and I need to spend a little time with my family. And then the second one, or the third one, I should say, but the second remaining is the week of the pay-per-view in Arizona, the UFC pay-per-view. So can't do that, but did get to do this one. It was cool. Actually got to see some family while I was in town. So all that was very, very cool. And listen, even though Cold Coffee was talking some trash on me, I saw that. I heard that. You know, sometimes I could have just played and been like, just set it up. But no, I listened this time. Since it was recorded before me, I listened this time. And I heard him talking trash about my new outlet. I heard it. I heard it. But, no, listen, he said it, and it's right. Like, if for any reason you guys didn't check out this fight card tonight, and I get it, man, it's a busy one. You know, midweek, I like that. So, I mean, but if for any reason you didn't check it out, man, go find Clay Collier versus Jeremy Stephens. What a fun, fantastic, phenomenal main event. These two dudes went out and just banged for 15 minutes straight, man. I mean, honestly, along the way watching it, I'm like, somebody's like just going to fall or somebody's going to get exhausted and can't keep going. And these guys just kept doing it. So, I mean, what a kickoff for PFL. couldn't have asked for a better main event. Just super entertaining. I see people talking about, fight of the year type discussions that's at least in it. Dude, obviously it's early and there's a whole bunch of fights, but yeah, it was as entertaining as you're ever going to ask, man. Two dudes just slowing down. Now, I'm a grappling fan. I like to see some jiu-jitsu. I like to see the different aspects of mixed martial arts, but come on. At the end of the day, we all love it when two dudes just stand and throw down, right? This was, Griffin Bonner type stuff or whatever, right? So fun main event. Clay Collier did win every round. I had it scored the exact same way. But it's one of those ones where you're like, if you just read the box score or whatever, oh, Clay Collier won Jeremy Stevens 30-27 across the board. Well, that was probably boring. I don't need to watch that. Nah, no. These things don't. Don't come across in the box score, so to speak. It's true too, because we're talking, of course, with the PFL's point system and season and playoffs and all that. Like at the end of the day, like Clay Collier just walks away with 3 points, right? Which fortunately, the way the lightweights worked out, he's still right there in the mix. So the most that got earned tonight was 4, but you look at it, it's like, I could have just laid on a dude for for 15 minutes and I get 3 points for that, and he gets 3 points for just absolutely throwing down. So fun fight. That's all I can say. If you didn't watch it, go watch it. Find it. It'll be archived on ESPN Plus, so you can check it out there. If you did watch it, then you're just buzzing just like I am, man. That was a phenomenal fight, and I guess, and it was really cool. Jeremy Stevens did come talk to the media. And I'll say let's give the credit where the credit is due. Ben Davis, at Ben the Bang Davis, I actually heard him asking before the main event even started, like, hey, he was asking PR, can you bring both guys back, win or lose? So credit where credit is due on making it happen, but credit to Jeremy Stevens as well for being willing to do it. Jeremy is so different now, man. He used to hate the media. I don't think he has any problems. We talked about it kind of earlier in the week when we got here, but look, the guy did not like the media one bit, and now I think he understands. I think he had like a chip on his shoulder, and he's kind of grown up a little bit. Obviously he's had a year of sobriety, which is awesome as well. But now he kind of embraces it, and so to come back after losing, a great fight, but to be willing to talk about it. And to be in great spirits, to be honest with you, he was awesome, man. He was just saying, look, I'm super, happy with my performance. I'm super happy with what I did. I saw, the things I need to fix, which are, my cardio failed me a little bit, and I got a volume strike a little bit more. But I'm going to fix those things, and it's going to be better. What more can you ask for, right? Came back and dealt with it. And I think there's going to be a lot of people that just go, Jeremy Stevens lost again. I think and again, I think this boils down to, did you watch the fight or not? If you watch the fight, I think you go, that's a little heathen went in there and scrapped. He's scrapped. Let's see it again. I want to see this dude go again. But if you just see another loss and you didn't watch the fight, or, I think it'd be easy to sit back and be like, ooh, another setback, man. This guy probably needs to hang it up. I don't see it that way, man. I don't see it that way. And good for him, man. It's funny, man, being here this week, and I'm still very much getting settled into my new role at the Underground, MMA Underground, mixedmartialarts.com. Still very much getting settled in, and we got a long way to go, man. We got a lot of stuff to do. But the cool thing I will say is being able to kind of focus on the other organizations again, right? I'll just be honest with you, man. The traffic that the UFC generates on all MMA websites, right? Not just MMA Junkie, but any MMA website. The traffic that they generate dominates the other organizations. And because of that, our bosses, they don't really want us covering the other stuff. It's like, all right, we'll do this because we have to, but like, why? Like, why? We're not getting the traffic off of it. And I get it, man. It is. At the end of the day, those websites are all set up to make money, man. They're businesses. So I 100% get it. But it is so nice to be in a place where there's freedom to kind of focus on whatever. I'm pumped about this one championship card that's coming up on Friday morning, right? First of all, Masakazu Imanari is on there. Come on. Imanari's grappling? I'm in. When you got moves named after you, you're somebody, and everybody knows what a legend Eminari is, right? Um, then you got like this, it's Muay Thai, and again, like I will not pretend that like I follow the Muay Thai scene religiously. Like I don't know these names, but I'm learning them again, man. And I have I have a passion in my heart for Muay Thai. It's if you've ever heard my story of how I got into MMA, Muay Thai played a big part of it, right? Because and I'll just give the brief version for people that have heard before, but I was a pro wrestling fan when I was like 8 or 9 years old. Figured out obviously that it wasn't real. That broke my heart because I thought they were real, and I was like, I don't know what now. Guy Mesger was opening a gym in Dallas. I went to the gym opening, and he had VHS tapes playing of Muay Thai. This is before he competed in the UFC, before he competed in Pancrase. So you're talking about very, very early on, right? And I saw Muay Thai fights, and I was like, oh, that's what a fight looks like, dude. Like, what? Okay, I'm in. Like this is awesome. And obviously, didn't have grappling, but it's not just boxing. You're throwing the kicks, the elbows, the knees, all that. So I was like, this is amazing. And it was in a stadium in Thailand. So they're playing the sound and the music and all that. I'm like, I'm a kid, man. I'm like an 11-year-old kid or something. I've never seen this stuff. I was like, this is amazing. So I still have a real passion, soft spot in my heart for Muay Thai. But anyway, there's a 17-year-old Swedish kid in the co-main event fighting for a world title, right? I mean, that's insane. Anissa Mexen is on there, who's widely regarded as the best female striker on the planet. So anyway, pumped for one championship, but pumped for PFL, man. And to be around, this is the first time I've covered a PFL event since 2019, and that was even in Vegas. So it wasn't like on-site coverage. It was just me driving from my house to the hotel, right? Man, I will say being around these people this week, being around the organization, man, you got there's a lot of dedicated, happy people that are excited about what's being built here. So, I don't know, man, it was cool to see it up close. Look, they know they're not going to be the UFC. They're not trying to be the UFC, but they got a hell of a platform with ESPN, ESPN Plus, and there's a lot of, like I said, like really dedicated, happy people. And now you're starting to see these names filtered through that like a Jeremy Stevens, who awesome, man. Another place to make a paycheck. That's great. Clay Collier, hell, the same way if you want to look at it that way. So I would say another interesting thing too about being here, and I was talking to Antonio Carlos Jr., another name there, right? Shoeface, Cara de Spato. About like who else do you want to fight? Because they don't get to the obviously the playoffs are all determined by seeding, but they do 2 regular season fights. Normally, what they do is to kind of seed it, basically to kind of seed that second fight is if you're a winner, you face a loser. And if you lost your fight, you face somebody that won the first time around, and that just kind of makes it easier, more equal in terms of the points or whatever. Because if you had like 2 guys with 0 points facing off, neither one of them has a chance to impact the guys that both have like 6 or whatever. So anyway, that's kind of what that's all about. But it was funny, and it didn't occur to me until now that because I was like, "Is there anybody that you want to fight?" And he's like, "Not really. I kind of like everybody and know everybody." Because one of the things I always said was interesting about PFL is, what I think makes PFL events fun and different and cool is that like, you see like every fight relates to the rest of the fight on the card. And I've said this before, but it's just so like, we don't talk about PFL a ton, but since I'm here, like I like the fact, you know how like you have like a title fight in the UFC and maybe there was a number 1 contender fight the same night, so you're like, oh, that's the natural next matchup, right? Like you guys are going together. It's that same thing, right? Like where every fight impacts the rest. Sometimes when we go down a card and we're looking at it, you'll have just some one-off random fight and it doesn't really relate to anything else or make sense. Whatever. This does, and so I love that concept about it. But it was funny because I hadn't thought about it. Because again, when I covered in Vegas, I wasn't around. I wasn't seeing it all. Now I see it. Like these guys are all hanging out together, and they're all on the same card. So if you're a light heavyweight or a lightweight like we had tonight, you're all on the same card together, and you're on the same card every time, right? So you're around all these people. You're seeing them in the workout room. You're seeing them in the hotel. So there's this real familiarity between the roster. It's kind of cool to see. So I don't know, man. It's nice. I'm not sitting here trying to tell you that, hey, man, guys, stop watching the UFC. PFL's taking over the world. Like nah, I'm not saying that. But I will say, man, they got seeing it firsthand, seeing what's going on. They got some good things going. I would say, obviously it looks good on TV. I've seen it on TV. Being there in person, of course, this is a new venue. It's called the Esports Arena, um, which is exactly what you think it is. It's a big place that's built to make esports, right? Like when we were walking around backstage, you could see like all the gaming chairs and the gaming consoles and stuff that they had stripped out of the arena and put in storage to build this thing for the PFL for the next 3 weeks. I thought it looked cool, man. I thought it looked really cool. Like, I do love that all these organizations, Bellator does it, PFL does it, of course, One Championship does. I like the big presentation, the walk-in, all that stuff. The UFC is never going to go to that, and I get it. And to be honest, I support it. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, right? And I always say in the beginning, I think it was really important that MMA differentiated itself from pro wrestling, from these other things, right? Because there was a time not that long ago when people didn't really know if MMA was real. I mean, you would get these questions, right? Same thing, right? Once I figured out pro wrestling wasn't real, I was like, well, there was people that were like, are those fights real? Like, and listen, that was not an uncommon thing. Like when I was, on a plane somewhere talking to somebody or doing something, that was a pretty common question that I would get asked. I'm like, and it's funny because obviously if you know the sport, you're like, well, hell yeah, it's real. What are you talking about? Like, are these the greatest actors of all time? But people didn't know. And so I think that's one reason the UFC really, in the early days, shied away from it, right? They didn't want the theatrics. They wanted to make sure that people knew this was something different. Cool. But that's not a concern anymore. So I love the presentation. Love the presentation. And the big stage and the graphics and the lights and all that stuff. It was cool. Listen, I had a chance to, nothing on camera, but I did have a chance to have some conversations with some of the PFL executives. And, you know me, man. I'm going to shoot it straight. And we're going to talk. And I did talk to them about like some of the pacing issues that they've had over the years and some concerns. And they did say, no, we listened. And I haven't seen it from a TV perspective yet, so I'm looking forward to that. But it felt like the pacing was better tonight. I mean, when they went on air, they already had the first two fighters in the cage, which was cool. And I know they were trying to make it, trying to move things along a little bit faster than maybe they had in the past. So if you're one of those people that hasn't liked the PFL, I can tell you, I've talked to the executives, they hear you, and they agree with you, and they want it, and they're working on tightening it up and kind of really pulling everything together. It's a balance, right? Because they know they have to sell the stories of these athletes. They have to tell, they have to get people to understand the concept. They have to get people to understand what these athletes are about. So they want to do packages and they want to do a little bit, but they're trying to speed it up a little bit. So hopefully you saw a little bit of that tonight. I'm going to watch it back and see, kind of what I think about the presentation itself. But good. Now, a couple things that I did notice. So there's only I think there's like 600 or 700 seats in the esports arena, so it's not hard for them to it's not like a ton of tickets they got to sell. And I think they've made it clear, and they've talked about this in filings and stuff like that they're not really looking. They don't view the live gate as a massive part of their business, right? Like they want to be profitable without even having a live gate, right? Which, of course, was necessitated by the pandemic, but they realize, like, hey, our product is more for TV, it's for consuming, we're not necessarily worried about having $1 million gate or whatever the case may be. So because of that, their presentation is really built around television, right? That's what they're trying to do, television. I will say this, I don't... And I want to be careful the way I say it because I'm not trying to criticize too much because, again, that's their core business model. But I will say I think they could beef up the in-arena presentation a little bit. One big thing I noticed, now they did have a massive screen behind us on press row that had, the action playing. And there you could see, the little tiny clock. The same one that you're seeing on your TV because that's exactly what the image is. I could see that little tiny clock in the corner. But they need a clock somewhere. There was only one screen. And maybe honestly, to be funny, like maybe not I'm spoiled by that DraftKings clock in the UFC presentations, which seemed almost like overkill a little bit to begin with. It seemed like we're just shoehorning in a place to put a DraftKings logo. But I will say, man, having that clock so accessible and viewable at all times is big. As a fan, like I want to see how much time's left on the clock. There's only one place in the entire venue for me to see it, and it's on a screen on the other side. Like that's kind of hard to see. So that was just one thing I saw there. And then the other thing is just, now again, it's completely different vibes, completely different thing. At the UFC, you got AL3 spinning, playing tracks in between like every little thing. So I mean, he's keeping it bumping, right? You go to a UFC event, in the downtimes or whatever, the music's playing, you got some tracks going, like it kind of keeps you entertained, even though there's nothing going on. You don't have that in the PFL. You just have, kind of some down times and some dead spots, and they have like some in-house music, but it's like this one track they play over and over. So I think they could beef up that. I think those two little tweaks right there would help the in-house presentation a lot. But I'm anxious to watch it on TV. After I get done recording here, I'll probably pull it up as I finish up some work tonight and watch the rest of it. But overall, man, great fights. I enjoy myself. House Manfio picked up the win over Don Madge, third round finish. Was down on the cards. House Manfio, the underdog story of all underdogs last year, and was having some trouble here against Don Madge, who's a talented guy, a very, very talented guy. And House was able to pull out with a brutal third round finish, great knockout. It was really cool. I put it on Twitter if you guys saw it, but Antonio Carlos Jr. was doing his post fight scrum with us while that was happening, and he happened to look over on the side and see the TV that was playing in the press room. And of course, they trained together at American Top Team, so like he was super happy. Like I think it's so cool to see like how happy those guys are for each other. You know what I mean? Of course, they're happy for themselves, but they love seeing those other guys. And man, by all accounts, House Mafia is a super nice, really good dude. And so he got that win, so it's big for him. And of course, Antonio Carlos Jr. was there talking to us because he had just finished his victory of 29 seconds over Dylan Monte. It was funny because Dylan Monte on paper came in at 8-1, like 7 first-round finishes. I was like, oh, this dude might be somebody to pay attention to, and I liked his attitude. He had like this intensity about him. But man, Shoeface rocked him, hurt him, got him to the floor, tapped him out. I mean, just unbelievable stuff. Great performance there. Olivia Aubin-Mercier picked up the decision win over Natan Schultz. I saw a lot of it. Now, I was not doing a full play-by-play. I was working at the time. I was doing some other things, so I was not. I'll be honest with you. I was not doing like the play-by-play level of intensity of watching. But I thought Natan Schultz won this fight. But I like Olivia Aubin-Mercier, man. Good for him. He's having some success post UFC, and he's just such a damn character, man. He is hilarious. Jeremy Stevens actually said that he talked to him. It was funny because all he said was that Canadian guy. So Jeremy Stevens had no idea. He was like, that Canadian guy. I talked to him, and I was like, and he said like, I'll see you soon. And Olivia was like, whoa, hey, oh, hold not. And he gave his little French Canadian accent or whatever. But it was pretty funny. But close fight. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying robbery. Watching live, I thought Schultz won. But Olivia Aubin-Mercier gets the nod. Corey Hendricks, which Corey's a dude that's been around the game for a while, man. Knowing him as a Las Vegas guy for a while, gets a win over Emiliano Sordi. Big win there, former champ. Ray Sefo said afterwards he heard that Sordi either came in with a knee injury or suffered a knee injury during the fight. Did say, look, I'm not trying to minimize. In fact, it was funny because Ray was saying, and Ray, obviously a long-time Vegas guy too, he's known Corey forever. Like, Corey's been around, Extreme Couture and just around them for a long time. And he even said, because, that people were talking about what a massive upset it was, and he's like, dude, I don't understand those odds. Like, those are people that don't know Corey Hendricks, man. Like, that dude's a live dog. So, big win for him, though, man. Corey's kind of, like I say, he's a good dude. He's been around the game for a long time. Got the big win here. Alex Martinez got the win over Stevie Ray, spoiling the return from retirement for Stevie Ray. So, big win for Alex Martinez. Probably the only, slow card, I guess, or slow fight. Martin Hamlet against Theodoros Astolios got the decision win there. Incredibly heavy wrestling. One of the, no disrespect to Martin Hamlet, but one of the kind of slower results of the night. Theodoros Astolios, by the way, is a scary-looking dude. Somebody from PFL called him a light heavyweight Paddy Pimblett. I'm like, yeah, but like a Paddy Pimblett with like something scary going on. I don't know, man. He's got like this weird look in his eyes. Oh, dude, how about Amari Akhmedov? Honestly, that's like a performance of the night bonus right there. Destruction of Victor Pesta, Akhmedov. Like, again, that dude, cardio has always been an issue for him, but he's a beast, and when he's on, he's scary. Even it's funny. Antonio Carlos Jr. He's like, dude, like we train together, and I don't mean like we're in the same gym and we see each other on the mats. Like that's one of my main training partners. He's like, that dude is a killer. I knew what was going to happen. Like I knew he was going to do something amazing. It's pretty interesting to hear them talk about it. Like, well, what if you guys have to fight? And they're like, well, I mean, it's the PFL, so if we have to, we have to. It is like the season, the playoffs, they play out the way they do. And I'm not going to try to take an opportunity from somebody, but that's something, a situation to keep an eye on. Rob Wilkinson picked up the win over Brucey Soto. Big win for him there as well. Nice finish there, and the night started out with Simeon Powell. What a cool story, right? The Simeon Powell kid from England got a contract on the Challenger Series 2.5 weeks ago. Flies home to England. And they're like, hey, by the way, we got it's non-season fight, but we got a showcase fight for you if you want to fly back. So literally, from what I understand, he got a win, hung out in Florida for a couple days because those fights were in Florida for like 2 or 3 days, flew home to England, and then had to fly back the next day. And did it, and came in and got a big win. Was struggling early. Against Clint Williams. Clint Williams was having success, and then just caught him with a big knee. I mean, vicious knee. Knocked Clint Williams out cold. So Simeon Powell, a prospect to watch. Now, Ray Seffo did say, not trying to rush him. This guy's kind of a developmental deal. So we're not going to rush him, and we'll see what happens next. So, fun, man. I had a fun time. I wish I could do the other 2 cards. I can't. But I'm gonna try to make some of the summer shows, the next round of fights, and then we'll see what's in store for the playoffs. Good people around here. Enjoyed it. Busy weekend, as Cole Coffey said. Busy weekend. Obviously, MMA Junkies got some deep coverage from Bellator out there in Hawaii. Cyborg tweeted me today and was like, hey, we got something going on. We sure would like to get some UG love. Like, all right, we got you, Cyborg. We got you. It is cool, though, right? I mean, obviously, going to Hawaii is awesome, but back-to-back nights headlined by women's fights as well, which is cool, right? I mean, I dig it, man. I think that's – I honestly do feel like MMA is one of the only sports where, like, the athletes in the men and women game are, like, on the same level. They're viewed at the same. So, some big fights between those 2 cards, those 2 days. Chris Cyborg, from what I understand, like nearing free agency with Bellator, and kind of speaking to the people like Kayla Harrison and the PFL people, they want to make that fight happen. Like they want to make that fight happen. Of course, Kayla does. I mean, she accepted an offer to Bellator, right? Like she thought she was going to go to Bellator and fight Chris Cyborg, and PFL matched her deal, and I guess they told her like, hey, we know you want this fight. We'll find a way to make it happen. So we'll see. I'm not trying to, write off anybody in Arlington Kyle like facing Chris Cyborg, but yeah, Chris Cyborg's a monster. So we'll see. I really want to see Cyborg versus Kayla Harrison. I'll be honest, I'm a Kayla Harrison fan, and I think she has a real chance of beating Chris Cyborg, man. I really, really do. But the rest of that card, especially that Saturday night card, Juan Archuleta versus Rafael Stotts, quarterfinal bout there, interim title on the line. Kyoji Horiguchi versus Patchy Mix is in there. Come on now. You got the return of Alima Leigh McFarland is on there as well. How about Yancy Medeiros on the prelims? That's looking solid. Loving that. The Friday night card is the kind of the same way they did last time when we were out in Hawaii. It's that one for the troops. Jordan of Lugo versus Danny Sabatelli. Sabatelli, I should say. Sabatelli, a little gangster, bro. I like that fight. Enrique Barzola versus Nikita Mikhailov. These are all the Grand Prix wild cards. They're calling them. Love it. Barzola, incredibly underrated. Busy, right? I mean, just a lot going on. Like I said, one championship Friday morning. Look, Jared Brooks on there. Against the undefeated Bokang Masunyan. We were supposed to have Buchecha versus Rug. That's not going to happen. I'm bummed about that one, but there's still some phenomenal fights on this card. And again, Masakazu Minari is grappling, so I'm watching that. I think what I want to do, and I'll see if I can do it. I have not been home in like 2 weeks for more than like a day. It's been a while. I've been on the road a lot. I'm ready to see my family. I'm ready to see my wife and kid. But I get home tomorrow night. I think I want to do is get up Friday morning, watch one championship, and then go to the UFC weigh-ins. We'll have a live chat, live stream, UFC weigh-ins. And then I will be there Saturday night for the UFC card. You know, Cold Coffee touched on it, man. The interest isn't necessarily massive for this card by any stretch of the imagination. You know, I do find the main event intriguing. Amanda Lemos, you know, kind of the new face in the division, right? So what happens with Jessica Andrade? I don't know. I'm excited by this. I am. I'm intrigued by it because it could potentially mean something in the division. Clay Guida versus Claudio Puelles. I love Clay Guida. I love Clay Guida. Just at this point in his career, man, such a fun dude to be around and always brings it. I heard we might be talking to him about bringing it back to very professional grappling again. So I'd love to see that happen. Macy Barber, Montana De La Rosa. That's a meaningful fight in that division. The class of the card for me, and a lot. Look, trust me, I'm not alone in saying this, but Manel Kape versus Sumodarji should be a banger. And then you look at Charles Jourdain versus Lando Venata as well. So those two definitely worth your time. How about the return of Tyson Pedro on the prelims, man? An MMA Roadshow favorite. Guy's been out for like, 3.5 years at this point? Unbelievable, man. Crazy. And then Mike Jackson is on there. You know, I like Mike Jackson, even though he beat my man CM Punk. Well, he had a no contest with CM Punk. How about that? Happy to see him there. So I'll be there on Saturday for that. And then, of course, for all you fine supporters of the MMA Roadshow on Patreon.com, we'll have the and a half to wrap it all up. So certainly do appreciate that. All right, listen. You know what's funny is that Cold Coffee touched on it, but you know it was just him and Alan Dawson there today, right? Two journalists at the media day, and yet if you go look at the media scrums, they're longer than any other media scrums we ever had. So how the hell do these two dudes take up so much time? That these things are so. I gotta know this. And I want to give love to my man Clay Guida. So let's wrap up. Let's wrap up the show and kick it over to Clay Guida. So before we do, let me just say, did you know you can save 15% with the purchase of Brake Best Select or Import Direct brake pads and 2 rotors using promo code BRAKE15 at O'Reilly Auto Parts? That's right. O'Reilly's Auto Parts. Yeah. Supporting the MMA Roadshow. We appreciate you, O'Reilly Auto Parts. And I'm just trying to help you save some money on your brakes over there. You can also, by the way, get 10% off $100 or more if you use the code April10. That's for online or ship to home only. You can see details there at O'ReillyAuto.com. We appreciate you, O'Reilly Parts. O'Reilly Parts? We appreciate you, O'Reilly Auto Parts, as well. I'm sure your O'Reilly Parts are fine, but O'Reilly Auto Parts supporting the MMA Roadshow. We appreciate you. You're O'Reilly's Auto Parts. Yeah. Now here's the Carpenter.
Clay, here we are again. Fight week. Talk about the emotions, the excitement, and yet again a co-main event. You know, they're still throwing you up at the top of the billing, huh?
Yeah, you know what? It feels like home because it is home. We're coming up on, it's crazy to say, almost 16 years. In 2006, UFC 64, October 14th. It's a date that'll stand out in my head forever, and it's wild to believe and think that we're still plugging away better than ever. And it becomes more fun. Fight week gets better, and now that we have a little more freedom, this is the first fight I've been in since 2020 when they started doing the quarantine fights, I call them, if you will, that we actually get to go out and wander around Vegas a little bit, and we're not held captive, at the host hotel. So it's great to get things back to normal. And this fight's going to be just like back in the day. You're going to see the old school caveman carpenter dude out there swinging the hammers and bringing home a victory.
I dig it. I think a lot of times we forget, about, that whole fight week. You guys are isolated. You guys are set away. How important is it for just your mindset of the overall fight week to be able to get out of that room, to be able to walk around, to keep you at ease? I think we just assume, they're always ready to fight. They're always ready to fight. But I'd imagine that most of us, if we were stuck in a room, are not going to be performing at our best because we're not feeling the best. But now that you are out and about, does that give you an extra ease during this fight week that you maybe didn't get to feel the last few events?
Absolutely. That's a good point. I believe that a true athlete, a true competitor, no matter your surroundings, no matter whatever is around you, you're going to be able to go out and compete no matter what, whether it's in front of one fan or 10,000 fans or a screaming stadium or an empty stadium. And that's just how we're wired because of, for me and my coaches, Danny Castillo and our other wrestling coaches, simply because the sport and the love of wrestling and the love of competition. So yes, I love to put on a show for the fans, but I also love to challenge myself and just go out there and compete. So being able to have that freedom and go run around, like today I went and paid homage, over the Mandalay Bay, back where it all started. I went, did a few mile run there and back and around the freeways and over the bridges and stuff like that. And we just sightseeing and watching the families take pictures. You could tell, some of these people, is it their first time or they've been here before and, saw some fans while I was running. And to me, that stuff is what Fight Week is all about. For the past couple of years, that was not taken away from us, but it wasn't around. You know what I mean? And fighting in Vegas, it's a fight town. You want to be out and about and see the cool stuff and go hit the strip and be out with your buddies and your family and go to the cool restaurants and see the cool things. Because at the end of the day, I'm still a fan of the sport. I'm a fan of this town. I'm a tourist. I'm a kid, at heart. And that's what keeps me going at this, is just always staying young.
I know you're a fan of the sport, and I know you're a fan of the people that are fans of the sport. So I know a lot of times, if you are trying to get that workout and you are trying to run down the street, but how nice is that to get stopped and have people say, hey, Clay, how important is it to have that aspect, and how good does it feel to have that back?
It always feels good. To me, it's, I remember, one of the first times I got stopped after a pretty big win, because we were on the undercard for a while, like most fighters. Our first couple of fights, even after my debut, then I fought a pretty well-known household name for a while. Dean Thomas, who's one of the better commentary guys now, or analysts and coaches in the game. And then I fought Tyson Griffin, and then I fought Roger Huerta on I fought Marcus Aurelio, but on a big pay-per-view when Randy Couture fought Gabriel Gonzaga, and then we were coming. I remember we were back at Mandalay, and we were about to go up the escalators, and there was like 500 people there waiting, and one dude's like, oh my God, it's Clay Guida, me and my coach. We had never experienced that yet, you know what I mean? And we were already a few fights into the UFC, fought some pretty good names, but then I think that's when we started to get recognition, and then Joe Silva offered me the main event against Roger Huerta, and then that kind of escalated us into a different, level of, fans and stuff like that. So, and to this day, the first fan and the single fan, doesn't matter what age or what, they're still as important as a group of 10,000 fans, And real quick story, and I'll stop rambling. I remember there was the first Illinois fight. It's actually in Rosemont at the Rosemont Horizon, where I used to wrestle when I was little, 7, 8 years old. It was when Anderson Silva fought Thales Leites, I believe, back in like UFC. I can't remember, but I know it wasn't in the city. It was by O'Hare Airport, and we were leaving the stadium, and I had just beat Mac Danzig like a month earlier than that, and then I was with a couple of my buddies, my manager at the time, and we saw George St. Pierre and David Loazo, and we were cruising out the back with them, and they're like, Guida, how do we get out of here? I'm like, I don't know. I haven't been here since it was a Foo Fighters concert. Before that was a wrestling event when I was little. I'm like, I don't know, but the UFC security like, here, dude, open this door, because if you guys go the other way, they're going to be mob of fans. So they open the door, we start kind of cruising. Next thing you know, there's 1,000 fans in the parking lot, and they see GSP, they see David Loazo, they see us. And I'm like, here, and he's like, oh no. He goes like, Guida, run. And I had driven my vehicle there in the parking lot, and we were sprinting through parking lots, away from the Mma fans, and they caught up to us. We took a bunch of pictures with them by our car, and then it's funny. I had a Ford Flex at the time, and we fit like 8 people in there. We put all the seats down, and I remember the champ, GSP at the time. We were all. I drove. I had a lady friend in the front seat. NFL former Super Bowl champ Jay Saylor. He won a Super Bowl with Tom Brady back in 2001 when they won it, the first one with the New England Patriots. And we had 6 people in the back sitting literally like leg to leg. And it was funny just to get mobbed and chased by fans just because of the stardom of GSP.
Sure.
They chased us literally from the stadium out into we were out in the middle of nowhere too in the parking lot. So, but you know what? It was cool. It was funny. We laughed. We took time. We took pictures with them, and they had a good laugh about it. And to me, those are the stories that make it all worthwhile.
It's funny. I'm not sure if you're a fan of like K-pop or, big pop stars. Last week was BTS was in town, and everybody was saying about how they mobbed them. So it was almost like you had that moment where you got mobbed like you were a superstar, rock star or something.
It's fun. I blame GSP, but you know what? I also look back at real classic rock back in the day and think about videos when we were kids. You see, not when we were kids. I wasn't even born yet, but think of Led Zeppelin or the Beatles flying in a plane with the Rolling Stones. Yeah. And people used to go out and wait for them to come down from the plane. Like those to me are a whole nother realm, a whole other level of real rock stars. And you don't get to see that anymore. That stuff's awesome.
But you got to think about that. That's a testament to you that people still feel that about you. For a guy that's been doing it for so long, I'd have to get a mathematician to add up all these fights that you've had. But here you are, 40 years old, right? Still doing it, and still being mobbed for people. That's got to say something and make you feel proud of what you've given to the sport for people to not say still feel that for you, but in a sense, still give you everything that you've earned up to this point.
We're just very grateful and very thankful because the sport has given everything to me. I owe everything back to the sport, and my parents brought us up that way to be kind to others, and our coaches instilled that in us. And to me, that's all we know.
And you've always been a great ambassador for the UFC. Now, one of the longest tenured ambassadors as well. But which is more important to be a good ambassador for the UFC out there and mixed martial arts, or to be the ambassador for wrestling?
Both. To me, they go hand in hand. Wrestling got me to the UFC, and UFC has been my home for 15 plus years. And wrestling is what kept me here. It built me. It helped give me confidence. It helped me as a competitor in other sports too. Wrestling helped me in baseball. It helped me in football. It helped me, socially. It helped me in business and family and things like that. And the UFC, has been so supportive of us and our family and our team. And so it goes hand in hand.
And eventually I will ask you about your opponent. But one last question on wrestling. Where do you feel in the United States, before I ask you about the world, where do you feel that some of the best wrestling in the States is happening? Is it in the South? Is it over in the East? Where's the best wrestling happening in America right now?
It's a combination of the East Coast, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and I believe Illinois is right up there, top 3, top 5. And then another state that's always been one of the best is California. They have a one-class system, some of the toughest, most slick wrestlers ever. So I'll say California's top 5 with Illinois, but Pennsylvania, Ohio, and obviously Iowa, New York, but you get different styles. You get the grinders, the guys that ride on top out east and in the Midwest, and then you get the slicksters and the takedown guys, and very good on their feet and very creative out on the West Coast. And if you guys don't know, next week is the U.S. Open, the Senior Nationals, which is going to be some of the best talent in the U.S. vying for a spot on the world teams and eventually the Olympic teams in this next circuit.
Any names that somebody should pay attention if they watch that one?
Man, some of my favorites. Yanni Diamakahalis, Dayton Fix, who's with Vayner Sports, our same management company, Jaden Cox, Kyle Snyder, Alex Deeringer, Zane Rutherford. Burroughs might be competing. Burroughs might already have a seed because he just won his worlds again. David Taylor, Kyle Dake, the list goes on and on. There's a bunch of guys I used to help out at Montini Catholic and help out at Izzy Style Wrestling. So he'll have a bunch of up and comers and a bunch of studs that are competing too. So keep an eye out for those guys. And man, I can't wait to catch some wrestling next week as well after a big win.
Awesome. I guess jumping into this one, when you're given this name, when you're given this matchup, Did you know anything about him, and what were your initial thoughts when you got this fight?
I don't think my coaches or any of us really had a clue about him, except we found out that he fought on the same card as we did December 4th, that he fought Gritzmacher, and
Yep.
it was really hard to find film on him actually for a while. I was only able to find the first round of that fight. We had to do some digging, do some research, found some film, and yeah, definitely poses similar threats that every tall, lanky athlete, southpaw that we fight does. You know what I mean? Everyone's taller than us. Everyone's bigger than us. Most of them are faster than us. Most of them, all of them are younger than us. But I'll always take experience. I'll always take wrestling over any martial art.
Now, he also seems like a guy that comes in and he wants to tout the youth. The youth will prevail over the older guy. You know, he gives you credit for your cardio, gives you credit for your wrestling, but besides that, he feels that his strengths are better in every other area. But he also was quick to tout the youth. Is that kind of the mistake of youth to always say that, oh yeah, you might be young, you might be pretty, but that doesn't win the day?
Yep. No, I wouldn't say that's a mistake by them. I think that's confidence. That's a good sign of, you know what I mean, of an athlete, of a championship mindset. So good for him. And you know what? Most of my opponents are more polished. They have better form. They have better technique than I do. But when it comes down to it, it's just a cage fight, man. And when you get in there with a junkyard dog like myself, man, it's going to be an ugly fight, and we're going to get our hand raised. Somehow I'll always take experience over youth.
And looking quickly on just like what are some of his submissions, he seems to be dangerous on the ground. He's got knee bar, rear naked choke, arm bar. When you face an opponent like that, does your excitement level ratchet up because you want to show how your wrestling can counter all those sort of things? And if they never even give him a chance, I think we saw that in the last fight, and the guy had submission skills, but you never gave him that opportunity.
100%. Yeah, the things that Coach Danny Castillo and his wrestling pedigree, his jiu-jitsu, he's a black belt, the things that we've been working on, what we did against Mark Madsen, we're the only one that's been able to execute that game plan against Mark Madsen. I'm pretty sure. He's taken everybody down. He's clinched everybody. He's had his way with everybody. What we did to Leonardo Santos, who was X amount time world champion. He had only been taken down a couple times in the UFC. He only had, I don't know, a couple losses in the UFC. I didn't know much about him because, you know what? I leave that up to the gentleman behind you. I leave that up to Coach Danny, Coach Joey, Coach Uriah. You know what I mean? Our coaching staff, they're the ones that do the research. I simply get to go out and execute the game plan. You know what I mean? So they have the hard job. I get the fun part. And what we've been doing in there in these past, I think Coach has been in my corner for almost 5 years now, you've seen my game, continue to evolve. And it's all because of wrestling based, because of our trainers and with the time they put in. And you're not going to see any difference, come Saturday night. We're going to go out there and you're going to have a wrestler versus jiu-jitsu guy, a wrestler versus a grappler, and we're going to put a ground and pound clinic on.
I think everybody always accepts the fact that Team Alpha Male's a top level gym, but do you ever think that people don't give you guys, the coaching staff, enough credit for the stuff that they're doing over there? I know that you're close because you're part of the Team Alpha Male, but you always hear about, this big mega gym here, this big mega gym here. Do you think that the coaching staff there at Alpha Male is getting enough credit for the work that they're doing?
I don't know if I can speak on that. I don't think that, I think maybe we like it like that because the head coaches over there are mainly wrestling pedigree and the mindset of wrestlers, or I guess our background is the sport. You don't really get a whole lot of recognition growing up in wrestling, going to tournaments, sitting there for 8-9 hours all day, you know what I mean? Wrestling a few matches and getting a dinky little medal or whatever. But what goes into those medals is something you take with you the rest of your life. So getting the recognition, I can't speak on that for my coaches or the coaching staff, but I know we cherish the time that they give us, and we owe everything to them. And what the media says, I mean, we prove it in the ring. We prove it in the cage, and look at our record compared to other gyms, compared to other big names. It speaks for itself.
That's great. Looking at this fight, is getting a win enough here, or are you hoping to go out there and get a devastating finish? Maybe prove to the young guy that it's not just about being young. What's the goal for this particular fight?
Always. And you know what? A lot of people don't know this. It's contract time. It's the last fight of a 4-fight deal. So I don't have to prove it. There's no pressure on me, but I want to prove to, Dana White, to Sean Shelby, to the rest of the UFC world, the fans, that I'm here to stay, that I'm getting better at 40. And like Coach Danny, I always say, the best is yet to come, man. And we're going to get another contract in there. We're going to go out there and look for a finish like we always do.
You gotten any good fishing in lately?
Not enough. And no pun intended, but Coach Danny and Coach Joey have been reeling me in, keeping me off the water a little bit more during camp, because I'm out there training camp for a reason. They know when I need to go get on the water a little bit, and they'll kind of, let the line out, if you will, a little bit, and they can tell when I'm getting antsy and I need some time on the water. So, but we're there to win fights. I love Sacramento because I can pick up and go fishing within a half an hour. You know what I mean? But yeah, we're there to just ride this thing into the sunset, man. Being in the gym is where I need to be.
Your pun game was very, very strong. I like that. I guess last thing for me, keys to the victory on Saturday. What do you need to do to make sure that you get your arm raised in victory?
Just be the dude, man. High pace, go out there, wrestle, show them what 40 plus years or 30 plus years of wrestling is all about.
That's awesome. Best of luck.
Thank you so much.
Hey, Clay.
How you doing?
Bit of a weird question for you maybe, but you mentioned experience over youth earlier. So if you were presented with a 21-year-old version of yourself, could you kick that guy's ass?
100%. Because I know I was probably drinking a beer at 21 during fight week, and now I'm just drinking water. So just more clever now. We've got more experience under our belt, obviously, and I'm in much better shape now at 40 than I was in 21. And in 21, I was working on a fishing boat in Alaska. So now I'm on a training mat every day.
At what age do you think you might struggle against yourself, where physical prime might outweigh, skill development, that junkyard dog mentality you said you have and can bring, and the experience?
It's tough to say. I started competing my first fight when I was 23, but I really, dove into MMA when I was 24, 25. We had a bunch of fights, and I was in the UFC right before I turned 26. So that grit, that hunger, wanting to get to the UFC and be the best, and some merging yourself into MMA, is I believe I have that at that time at 25 or 26, and I have that. I've reinvented myself and rededicated myself now at 40, and I'm in better shape now than I was at that age. So like I said, I'll take experience in wrestling over youth.
It seems like this sport's so young that it evolves nearly constantly. So since you made your debut almost 20 years ago, what have been the biggest changes you've seen in the sport, maybe more from a technical side rather than the obvious popularity growth?
100%. Yeah, the technical, it's not the wrestler versus striker or grappler versus kickboxer anymore. It is MMA guy versus MMA guy or something like that, or world champion jiu-jitsu guy who can strike, who is also a very good Muay Thai, specialist now against maybe a collegiate wrestler who's got very good striking. So it's neck and neck now. And you know what? It's amazing to see what guys like, Usman and these champs have done, because even though he's been winning in good in fine form and good fashion, but look at, Colby and some of these guys, they're right there. I don't think it's that much of a gap. At least for the champions, to the top 2 or maybe the top 5 guys. That's just kind of how I look at it. I think on any given day, anyone, in any weight class can regain that title. You know what I mean? So there's just a couple of guys, I think that maybe are levels above, and maybe could be Usman, maybe Francis, Ngannou. So it's fun to see the sport right now, because the talent pool is just changing so quickly and everyone's getting better.
I mean, you mentioned those guys, and it's like we've seen pockets of extreme talent come from West Africa. Obviously, the Dagestani guys. Feel like the London show a few weeks back was a showcase of where the British MMA scene is at. Do you feel like that might be the next thing we see in the evolution of the sport, where a new region comes through to kind of, put together a champion that we might not have seen from that country or something like that? Is that where you think the sport might go next?
I would like to see it. It's amazing to see. Honestly, Israel Adesanya was a guy that I wasn't that sold on for a long time. I was like, this guy, looking at his body style, I'm like, this guy is finishing wrestlers and submission guys, and I wasn't sold on it until he did it to, Yoel Romero and Whitaker. I'm like, all right, he's the real deal. You know what I mean? And he makes it look easy out there. John Jones, to me, is the Michael Jordan of MMA. To me, he'll always be the best. Him and Fedor Emelianenko, my all-time favorite fighter of all time. You know what I mean? Those guys I hold up, on a whole different level. But to me, they were eons above, their time. But now I think the talent level, it's getting even closer and closer every event.
And I might be about to answer my own question here, because it seems like you just love coming back and putting on a show. Is that your biggest motivational driver to keep doing it at 40 years old, 58 fights?
Absolutely. It's like I said, I love to compete. That's the wrestling in me. That's the athlete in me. And I just love to challenge myself. Coaches know every time we get a new opponent, I'm probably either going to be the underdog, or they probably have, higher skill set than me. But the coaches, we find a way to win. You know what I mean? They set the game plan. I get to execute it. So it's more of a challenge to myself, and then being thankful that I get to go out there and put on a show and compete in front of my friends and family and people around the country and around the world.
Awesome. And circling it back to fight night, we were speaking to your opponent earlier, and he was saying that should he win Saturday, you would be by far the biggest name on his record. So thinking of that, what do you think you bring to the octagon that he will never have seen before in his life?
Pace, ferocity, intensity, and we're the cardio king. That's what it comes down to.
Best of luck on fight night.
Thank you guys so much.
Love me some Clay Guida. Love me some cold coffee and Alan Dawson, just making these interviews incredibly long today at the UFC Apex. Check them out. Listen, like I said, busy weekend, man. Bellator, one championship. Hopefully you watch PFL. They got more to come. We're going to do the best to have you covered. Follow us on social media. Do all that good stuff. Make sure you go to patreon.com/the MMA Roadshow. Support us over there. That means the world to us. And, no matter how you engage us, how you help us, whatever you do, just know that we appreciate you. Thanks for listening.